What up, Salvador Briggman here, hailing in from Miami, Florida. Welcome to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. It's a beautiful day here in Miami, and I hope that wherever you are having a great life, you're having an enjoyable time, and more importantly, you're buckling down, you're kicking ass, you're taking names, you're studying up on the craft that is crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is part art and part science. And what I've really dedicated, my life to when it comes to this show, when it comes to this podcast, which I started in 2015, and I got into the industry back in 2012, is because crowdfunding is there so you can create products, inventions, games, creative works, new books, films, etc. And you can create that with the audience that wants to experience that. It's so cool, and it's something to me that there's not enough education out there when it comes to what's working behind the scenes to really pull the major levers, to get people to take action, to drive traffic, to get pledges, to get backers to these major campaigns. And if you want to discover what's happening behind the scenes, you can go into the archives of my show and you can look at all of these case studies, people from around the globe, not just the United States, people who don't even speak English in some cases, right? And I've made the effort to show you that no matter where you are, no matter if you're 18 years old, I think the youngest guest we've ever had is around 16 years old versus 80 years old. I think that's around where the oldest guest that we've had. You can be successful in raising funds from the crowd. And today's guest is actually a great example of someone who did a six-figure campaign despite the fact of having going into an industry which I'd say is actually quite competitive. So if you want to learn how to get a product going from scratch and really what went into this launch, what do you need to have on the page to get people excited and really get into the psychology of someone who is taking action and is backing this, I think today we have a great podcast episode when it comes to that. Today's guest actually raised over $140,000 from more than 600 backers for AstroBrew. So you'll hear about that and more on today's podcast episode. If you do value education and you want to spend less time learning about this and more time taking action, getting out there and actually launching this project, I have two resources that I would recommend. The first would be my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. And so many things people have said incredible things about this book, but to me, this is really the bedrock foundational knowledge you gotta have in your war chest if you want to be able to tactically go out there and really blow past your funding goal. So you want to check this out. I got a free copy that I'm going to send your way. All you got to do is download a free trial of Audible, and you can get a free copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula. Write this down. Go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link will take you there, and you can grab a copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Okay, again, you can go there, you can get a copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula. In addition, for those of you who are like, Sal, these podcasts, I don't want to listen, 45 minutes to the story and everything that's happening behind the scenes and all the tools and techniques that are talked about in these episodes. I just want to get a lesson sent to me every single couple of days, maybe once a week or twice a week. If that sounds like you and you kind of want to attack this in more of a bite-sized format, I do have a free course that goes through how to drive traffic, how to get attention, how to get backers and pledges to your Kickstarter campaign, and more importantly, how you design a campaign that gets people to want to take action and to join you on that journey and decide to fund your passion. So if you want to turn your passion into profit, go and check out my free course at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter will take you there. And without further ado, let's jump right into this episode and discover how AstroBrew was able to raise over $140,000 on Kickstarter, and it's coming up right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I'm here today with an exceptional creator who's already been able to raise $121,343 off of a $10,000 goal, more than 500 backers for AstroBrew, the ultimate cold brew coffee maker. And we are lucky enough to have a member of the team here today. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely, man. Maybe we can get started. You can fill in some gaps in that introduction and also tell the listeners a bit about your products.
Sure. So my name is Joe. I'm the founder and CEO of AstroBrew. I invented the machine over a year ago. I spent 2 years researching independently the cooling system for this machine. And then using my extensive knowledge of coffee, I spent 10 years as an R&D engineer at Keurig. I'm sure everyone knows who Keurig is.
We all love Keurig, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I spent, my research in my time, and I put it towards developing cold brew coffee, which Keurig has never done research into as far as I'm aware.
So it sounds like you've done a lot of research up until that point. Why decide though, to jump ship, to do your own thing? That's pretty gutsy, right? To go out on your own. Have you done a venture before? Or?
No, I never have, but I've always had aspirations ever since I was 13 years old. I knew I wanted to not only be an inventor. I didn't even know what an engineer was at the age of 13, but I knew I wanted to be an inventor, and I knew I wanted to have my own company and the freedom to basically do what I want to do, research what I want to research.
Right, right. And it sounds like you've really focused that into solving this problem, right, with AstroBrew. Maybe you could just describe a bit about AstroBrew and sort of your unique take there on cold brew coffee.
Yeah, no, cold brew coffee is, I think a lot of people understand that cold brew is difficult to make yourself at home. And if you go to the coffee shop, you still have to drive to the coffee shop. And for anyone that is addicted to coffee like me, that drive to the coffee shop is agonizing. After you've woken up in the morning and you need your fix. So, in the time that you even drive to the coffee shop, you could already have cold brew at home in 5 minutes time. The machine is so easy to use. You can make a full liter or 34 ounces of cold brew in only 5 minutes, and it's going to come out chilled to 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you like it extra cold, you just got to wait a few more minutes until it gets down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is near freezing.
So it's insanely fast, right? And
it's insanely fast. It's insanely cold, and it's so delicious and smooth.
So one thing actually that caught my attention is that there's also no pods, which I think is really interesting. Do you mind just describing that feature a bit?
Sure. I'm all about, being eco-friendly and about the environment. But, I know that, capitalism isn't going anywhere. Pods aren't going anywhere. But, we all need to do our part. And right now, consumers aren't being given the tools to live in this world and be environmentally responsible.
Right.
The recycling lie about everything getting recycled. Well, it turns out only 10% of everything you recycle is actually getting recycled.
Exactly.
Which that's a punch in the gut right there.
Mm-hmm. And so you also think about all the harmful chemicals and stuff with plastic, right? So it's like,
oh yeah, you don't know what's in your food anymore. Microplastics, PFAS are getting in your food. So this machine is very responsible to use as a consumer. It's healthy to use. There's very little plastics in the food path, and any plastics that are in the food path will not leach into your drink. They won't leach microplastics and won't leach PFAS or BPA.
Love that.
But absolutely. And then it's like a drip coffee maker. You use your own grinds, any blend you want, and at the end of the day, it's only 30 cents for a 12-ounce cup of coffee. It's an amazing cost savings for consumers.
Yeah, that's a great investment, and definitely anyone who's doing a Kickstarter is going to need their healthy doses of cold brew for sure.
Yeah, and cold brew. Oh man, that's a great segue because cold brew is better for you. It's better for your gut. The acids that tend to make your stomach have indigestion from regular hot brewed coffee aren't there. Those acids stay in the beans. It's still an acidic drink, but it's not going to cause indigestion.
Love that. Love that. So one question I
Mhm.
had for you before we get more into the Kickstarter campaign, I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of inventors like yourself who have an incredible idea, but it kind of stops on the tip of their tongue, or they
Yes.
put their fingers to the page and it stops at their fingertips with just kind of like a rough and dirty sketch and it doesn't really go anywhere. Why do you feel
Yes.
like your journey has persisted and has led to a fully finished product here? Do you have any advice on people bringing their ideas into fully finished products?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel that pain because I have had so many inventions in my life, that never came to fruition. And I'll swear to this day that I invented the gloves that can you can use your phone, your smartphone with gloves on. I totally invented that, but I got stuck.
Mm,
I had a prototype and I didn't know what to do. I got busy and someone else, put it to market before I could. And I feel that pain. I feel that because I've been there. And
right.
it's all about persistence. Don't give up because someday as long as you're persistent, you're going to get to this point. I mean, I'm 41 years old. You know, I'm not young like I used to be, and maybe my ideas aren't as fresh as they used to be. But I got there now. I have my Kickstarter. I have my product, and it's all because of persistence and learning how to network. If it weren't for networking, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be as successful as I am at this point.
That's a really great point. And I think, one thing that we said in the past is like business is a team sport, right? So it's kind of like
Yes,
finding the right people that can fill in the gaps with your skill set. Would you say that's accurate?
a, 1,000%. And that's a huge part of my personal philosophy as a CEO of a startup is to fill in the gaps, fill in the knowledge gaps, with, bringing on team members that are passionate about the product, but also fill in those gaps. It's absolutely important. And if you don't know something, if you don't have the resources to bring someone on, get out there and teach yourself, learn it.
Right.
Because there's a wealth of information on the internet now between master classes and TED Talks and YouTube channels. You know, it's easier than ever to teach yourself how to do things.
Got it. Yeah, so it's definitely a problem that you're super passionate about. So walk me through the decision. When did you really decide to put this on Kickstarter? What led to that decision? Because there are many ways I'm sure you could unveil this product. Why did you decide
Yeah,
a Kickstarter campaign?
I had always wanted to do a Kickstarter, from the time that, Kickstarter first came to be as a website. And I think one of the first products that I learned about was the Pebble Watch that,
Oh yeah,
launched on Kickstarter. And I've always been a fan of Wise too, the Wise cameras that, sell for $30 or whatever the price is. Though it's a
right.
great product. They launched on Kickstarter. But when I came out with AstroBrew, I was on the fence because I knew how much hard work and investment it takes to launch a Kickstarter now. And I didn't have the funds to do that. So I went back and forth. But what really convinced me was networking. I took my first prototype and I went to the New York Coffee Festival last fall, October of 2023. And me and my buddy, my chief marketing advisor, Vijay, we were at the festival for 3 days exhibiting our product, and we handed out samples of cold brew coffee to over 2,000 people. And one of those
Wow.
people, yeah, thank you. And one of those people was a representative from Kickstarter. We saw the impression we got from those 2,000 people and the feedback we got. And that representative convinced us to get onto Kickstarter. And I attribute the fact that we have that stamp of a project we love. It's because we made that network connection to a rep
Right.
from Kickstarter, and we stayed in contact with her. They were impressed with our gumption, our
Mhm.
persistence.
Well, first of all, I mean, New York is such a coffee culture, right? I lived there for 6 years in Brooklyn, and
Yeah,
like coffee is such a big culture there.
absolutely.
And to be
Absolutely.
able to unveil your product, what kind of reactions were you getting when you were at that show? Like, what did people think? What did they say when they first tasted this?
I'll tell you what, we had the smallest booth at the festival. And, we were actually lucky enough to get right up front near the entrance. And, we have a picture of a huge line of people waiting, to sample our coffee. And, you know, everyone saw it come out of the machine and we handed them the sample and we said, "What do you think?" And a lot of them, the first reaction was, "Wow, that is smooth." And part of the reason it's so smooth is because it is a quick process. And, our patented process, it's not soaking overnight. So it doesn't get over extracted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it's also getting all the flavors. So,
Right, right.
the reaction was very encouraging from everyone that tasted our coffee.
So you decide to do this Kickstarter and then you gear up to a launch, right, for this. What was kind of going through your head the night before you went live with this campaign? What were you feeling the night before you went live here?
I was up till 2 a.m. for 3 nights in a row working on my Kickstarter page with
Insane.
Vijay. Yeah. I mean, I always go by the tried and true fact that, or advice that nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. So I worked right up till that mark. So I was so nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen. And, we worked with a great company named Launch Boom to build up our audience. And they gave us advice on everything. And it was a great experience, but I was still nervous.
Right. So when it comes to, were you nervous that it wasn't going to work well? Were nervous that no one was going to show up? What were you most nervous about?
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't know who's going to show up, if we're even going to hit our goal or not. You just don't know. You
Right.
can develop, you can get your market, you can get those reservations beforehand. But, at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that anyone's going to show up. So you just do your best and, that's all you can do.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately.
So walk me through the day you do go live. Like, what was that experience like when you finally went live with this campaign? Did people start backing it? Like, what were you experiencing on that day?
Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad, basically. I don't get paid for this. And I take care of my kids in the morning while, my wife who works very hard, goes off to her job. So I decided to start the campaign early at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, thinking, all right, I'll start it at 7, or was it 7:45? I forget. I was going to start it early just because I had to get the kids to, their day camps and daycare.
Right.
So I started it. And I went to go make lunches and I came back and I was shocked. I had already started receiving orders. I had 10, 15 orders by the time it took me to make the kids lunch. And I was absolutely blown away by that. And by the time I dropped the kids off, by the time I dropped the kids off and came back home, an hour went by and I had hit my goal. I hit the goal in 45 minutes.
That's super cool. And I'm sure, having people back you who maybe have never, tried it out in person, or people that you've never met before, I'm sure that's a really cool feeling for sure.
Getting that organic traffic was such a great feeling. And that's, what a lot of people ask me was, oh, was it all friends and family? And I said, no, a lot of friends and family I know don't actually drink coffee or don't drink cold brew or haven't, tasted it yet. And as supportive as they have been, I'm a firm believer in, I personally don't like taking money from close friends and family because the risk is high and I don't want to put them in that position.
Right.
So yeah, getting organic traffic felt so good.
And I think that's a huge validation as well, right? So because like you went to that event and you had so many people lining out and wanting to go and sample the coffee. Now you're kind of seeing that same thing, but it's happening online, right?
Exactly.
Did anything surprise you throughout the course of the campaign, whether that's a reward tier or feedback or any kind of responses? Did anything surprise you throughout the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at the Kickstarter culture, like, these super backers and how supportive they are. And I would get messages from super backers giving me advice on how to, run my campaign or how to do things a little differently. And I love hearing advice, feedback, whether it's positive or negative or in between. I always take it to heart. But just, getting that support from the community, again, felt so good.
Was there a specific piece of advice that resonated with you or that you thought, helped that one of the super backers gave you?
One piece of advice I got was about, whether or not to receive international orders. And, coming from the appliance world where adhering to local laws and certifications for appliances, hardware in general, it's different all over the world. And I was very hesitant to accept international orders because the safety concerns are very real.
And logistics, all that.
Logistics, everything. I mean, and it would be the worst feeling in the world to hear that, your product caused harm to somebody because you didn't follow those laws.
Right.
And it's even if you do follow the laws, there's still risk. And as a professional, I understand those risks. But, as a business owner, you need to learn how to weigh risks. And the only risk in not accepting international orders is that at the end of the day, if you don't meet those certifications, you just have to give that money back to that person. So I was convinced to accept international orders and do the hard work it takes to ship safe product to those folks in different countries around the world. And now, I changed it and it changed the course of my campaign and I'm committed to doing it. But with full knowledge of the hard work that it's going to take to make that product safe for those consumers.
Right. And that's obviously a big leap of faith, but at the same time, you're really thinking through it, the pros and the cons. And, I like the approach there. I think a big takeaway is like, you have to really think it through, right. And write it out and make sure you're making the analysis there.
Yes.
One other question I had for you here is kind of on that topic you mentioned earlier, which is friends and family. I think a lot of beginning inventors, creators, entrepreneurs, they aren't sure how to approach the friends and family situation. Is it okay to rely on your friends and family to help you promote it or to back it? What are your thoughts on that topic?
Of course it's okay. If you have friends and family who, love you and support you in your everyday accomplishments, whether it's, hey, I ate my vegetables today. Good for you, buddy, or whatever. As long as you have support in your life, those people love you and you should share with them your accomplishments. And you can share, hey, I have this idea and I want to run a Kickstarter. You should tell them that,
Right.
And whether or not you're comfortable asking your friends and family for money, I mean, that's a different question, but just in general, getting support doesn't have to be just money. It can just be a pat on the back. It can be, I will share your Facebook post or your Instagram post or whatever.
Right.
And I've had, so many, friends and family sharing my Facebook posts and just commenting on my stuff. And, I really feel the love.
Well, one of the things I would add to that is I find there's this concept of co-creation, right? Which is that like when people feel like they're creating something with you, they're far more likely to then help support that creation, right?
Yes.
And just even watching your video, man, like you got an incredible video. You got some of your family members there. You can feel the vibe, like just involving even your family in the video or seeing your iterations come together. It kind of makes them more invested, right, in that journey.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, I went to many friends for advice on different graphics or, I had a friend of mine, her and one of my investors, it turns out, his mother made my logo and she did a great job. And it's because I had that system and I asked questions and advice from my friends and family. But yeah, I've shared many things with, say, hey, here's the preview page of what my Kickstarter is going to look like. Could you give me some feedback?
Right.
Right. Way before you hit that activate button.
In that topic of the video, it's kind of like one of those exciting experiences, but also for a lot of people, they're not so sure about like the length of the video. Are they going too long? All the different shots.
Right.
Did you have anything you realized about the video that you want to pass on to beginning creators or any insights there?
Yeah, you need, consumers have, everybody, there's so much media everywhere you go these days, and if you're not showing your product in the first 7 seconds of your video, you're going to lose people. And, I'll even share with you the statistics on my Kickstarter dashboard. Only 26% of everyone who's looked at my video have gotten through the whole thing, which I was surprised at. I was surprised at because I didn't think my video was that long. Yeah. And, everyone I talked to said, oh, your video is great. Your video is great. I watched the whole thing. And that's great. But, not everyone's going to watch your whole video, and that's fine. And even though you can answer every single question that could possibly come up in your video, but people are going to still ask those questions. And repetition is a good thing. Right. Answer the same questions in your FAQ as you have in your video. Take clips from your video, make it a GIF that you put on your page somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, I think this idea of like having a longer video was great in the early days of Kickstarter, and people could just kind of throw up a video. And now it's so much more polished, right? It's so much more professional, and just going short, where that's like under 4.5 minutes or 5 minutes, it has to be under that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And I think mine's a little longer than that. I think mine's about 5.5 minutes. Maybe longer.
Yours is around 4.5. 4
is it?
minutes,
right.
15 seconds, yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of an earlier draft, but yeah, we worked hard to get it as short as we can. We, giving a good message and try to grab attention.
Right.
But after the first week, I actually changed my video to include some shots of the AstroBrew machine in the very beginning.
Awesome. Love it. Well, I do have a couple more questions, but first of all, where can people go to learn more about AstroBrew? Where can they go to learn more about your campaign? If they want to check it out, where can they see some of your photos?
You can go to our Instagram page at AstroBrew Coffee. You can go to our Kickstarter page, just search for AstroBrew, and our website, www.astro-brew.com. And we have a link to the Kickstarter page there as well.
Great. So I'll make sure to include those links in the show notes. So I just have one or two more questions. First one would be, What did you find the most rewarding about going down this path of crowdfunding? What did you find to be the most rewarding aspect of that?
The community, the community, seeing all these comments of passionate people, comments on my Facebook page, on the Instagram page, the Kickstarter page. I love hearing from the customers. I have a weird I have a weird passion for customer service, and I love talking to customers. So, hearing that from the positivity from the community, answering people's questions is fantastic, and I love it.
My other question would be, in looking at this, and you've done incredible. I mean, you've gotten 10 times your goal. You're still raising money. It's going awesome. Was there anything you would have done differently, or anything that you would have, maybe had a different technique with throughout the campaign?
Originally, I wanted to be in. I wanted to have like 100 machines by this point, and maybe this was a tall goal, but I wanted to have 100 machines that I could send to influencers and get out there more, and be selling coffee on the street by having it come right out of this machine. And that was a bit ambitious. I just didn't have the funds, to build 100 machines. But I do have I have 10 machines that I'm in the middle of building. I have one machine that's completely done, and it's hardwired. I used Arduino for the board, and it's my production ready prototype. It looks like it came right off the production line, but I would have preferred to be further along. And it's not for lack of trying. I have other responsibilities, family life. So it is what it is, and I did my best, and I don't have regrets, but
Right.
I would have liked to have been further along. But you pivot when you have to.
Yeah, you got to adapt. You got to be flexible, and move forward,
Absolutely.
push forward.
Absolutely, you can't kick yourself because you didn't hit your goals. You got to keep moving forward no matter what.
My final question for you, and this might be connected to your previous point, is if you could, and we can end on this note, if you want to speak directly to the listeners, and you can either end with maybe a bit of advice someone has given you your career. It could be a favorite quote that you have. It could be a word of encouragement for other creators, inventors out there, or anything along those lines. And we can end on that note.
My very favorite quote as an engineer, as a startup founder is, if I've seen further than others, it's because I've stood on the shoulder of giants. And I'm pretty sure it's Isaac Newton who said that. But it's very true. And I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have the education I have, if I didn't have the push I've had from my parents, if I didn't learn from my peers and my mentors, I wouldn't have invented this machine, because that's what it took. I stood on the shoulders of giants, and I took that knowledge and I brought it a step further.
That's incredible. That's definitely a great quote, and one we have to remember for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate all of your advice, Joe, and look forward to your next launch.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast episode. I really am looking to kindle within you that desire, that hunger to get out there and to sink your teeth into this project, to become a student of crowdfunding, to really be willing to go the extra mile, to put in those nights and weekends, burning the midnight oil to get this out there, because if someone gets their hands on your product, on your invention, on your project, can experience your artwork or your ideas, you can literally change the world for the positive. And that to me is such a cool thing, the fact that we can have like a ripple effect of karma being sent all over the planet. And if you listen to what I talk about, not only are you going to be more successful, but you might also come back on the podcast as a success story, which would be incredible. We've had actually many listener success stories over the years come back and share how this podcast helped them get there. Now, at the same time, I do think that when I was when I was a lot younger, and when I was younger, I was definitely ambitious and I was always trying to learn, but I always felt like access kind of held me back in some ways. And I didn't realize the value of that until actually, for example, when I was doing fencing. So I did fencing for 10 years, and I'd say for the first couple of years, I was okay at the sport. I was like, I was mediocre, and I was always in these group classes learning about the sport. So one day, I went to my teacher and I was like, hey, would you mind if you could give me some lessons after class? I'm happy to spend money on this where you can do it like a personal session. And they were more than willing to do that. And I was so excited about this. And when I first got that experience of like learning from someone individually, it changed my life forever, because all of a sudden I went out and not only did I have the confidence to begin to go to tournaments, but I started to win and started to actually get better and better at the sport of fencing. And I learned about all of these techniques and strategies that I didn't know about before, just because I had that individual coaching experience. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to make myself available to my audience via individual one-on-one coaching calls, because I believe that the right guidance in the right direction can have a profound impact in your life. Now, you have to be willing to, invest in this. You have to be willing to say, hey, I need a little bit of help, right? I just need a little bit of guidance, whether I'm in the idea stage or I'm in the prototype stage, or I already got something I'm working on. I'm ready to get up and gearing up to launch. I just want to understand exactly what I should be doing every step of the way. I got to be understanding the tools that I can incorporate into this, who can help me with this campaign, etc. If you really want to have that experience of having individual intensive coaching calls, you can go and book your first individual intensive coaching call, a one-off call with me at the link I'm about to mention. I have some students who want to continue into long-term coaching, and I have different things we can talk about with that. I have some students who might want help with execution to some capacity, and depending on the project, we might decide to take that on a select basis. We're pretty, I'd say, very selective when it comes to that. But if that's something you want to explore and go and book an individual one-on-one coaching call with me, go to the link at crowdcrux.com/coaching. This link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. Will take you there, and you can book an individual coaching call with me. Regardless, I hope that you take action towards your goals this week, that you move with eagerness and enthusiasm and a sense of urgency towards your dreams, and that I'll see you next week where we share an even more incredible podcast interview with you. Thank you so much. My name is Salvador, and I'll see you next time.